Some people use the expression pat yourself on the back. I prefer the term I like to suck myself off. Something I'm sure I tried as a young man, but now that I have a dad bod, I'm definitely not accomplishing that. This is Jar Humor speaking, and I like to make statements like that up front, not only for entertainment purposes, but also to weed out any of the nerds listening. Like, if you're too uptight to handle what I just said, please walk away. Just walk away. I want to talk about being wrong. I feel that in my life, I have been wrong so much about so many things. In particular, about culture, about young people, about... I feel like making snap judgments of people. I'll give you an example. So I'm a cartoonist by trade, but since the robots have taken my job, I work at a grocery store to pay the bills. And I'm doing my stock clerk sort of gig, waiting to put some items on a shelf, and there's this girl standing there, and she's a young person, and she's dressed like a young person, kind of in this sloppy sort of fashion that I, as an old fart, don't particularly care for, because back in my day, we wore a suit and tie and a fedora when we went and bought our groceries. And I'm not exactly that old. I was born in 82. Even though I was born in 82, I still identify as Gen X and not a millennial. Any sociologists can fight me if they want to on that. I still believe I'm Gen X. I just don't want to be a millennial. And I definitely don't want to be whatever this girl is. Probably some type of Zoomer, whatever thing. She's wearing Crocs. She's on her phone. She's sitting, and she's just, she's got this, and I'm just looking at her, and she's in my way, and I just feel like she's trash. And then all of a sudden, she turns around, and she sees me, and she goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry, am I in your way?" And I go, "Oh, no," and I give her the old line. I'm like, "Oh, don't worry, they pay me by the hour." And we have a polite conversation. I make her laugh because I tell her about this old lady that I saw spend a half an hour trying to pick out cheese when I was trying to put some cheese up in the grocery store. and we had a nice polite conversation. A minute ago, I'm calling this girl trash inside my own head. And now I'm having this polite conversation with a young lady who is very sweet and very nice. So I was wrong. Or maybe I'm right. And what is the truth? I couldn't even tell you what the truth is. I couldn't even tell you. I said something to someone today. I said, and this is a line I use a lot. If we've been lied to our entire lives, how would we even know what the truth really sounds like? I like to question reality. I was a conspiracy theorist long before it was cool, before it was trendy, like I was punk rock. You know, now I even talk about the moon landing being fake. You get deplatformed or something like that. I don't even know. Like, it's crazy. I remember I made a video a couple years ago, and I said lizard people. I think I titled it like something about lizard people, and one of the platforms cited a reference like, "Hey, this is a dangerous conspiracy theory about how some people in the government are lizard people." And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm doing entertainment. I'm doing humor. It's comedy. And all of a sudden I started thinking, oh my God, are there really lizard people? And they're in control of this platform and they don't want people to know? They don't want anyone to... We gotta silence the people about the lizard people. I always used to joke, because I guess it's an election year in my country. I didn't notice because they haven't released any sort of plague this year. That's why I didn't notice. So I was talking with someone today who was telling me her political views, and I'm just like, that's interesting. I said, I've talked to both people like you and people on the other side of the aisle from you, and y'all seem to have your differences. I hope y'all work that out. I gave her the line. I go, yeah, look, I don't really know how much power the president really has. I said, in my opinion, and once again, this is my opinion, the president is controlled by a shadow government. The shadow government is controlled by the lizard people. The lizard people are controlled by the space aliens. Yeah, everybody's got a boss. And she laughed, which was nice, because she, from what she was talking to me about as far as her political views, I didn't really think she was going to laugh. But that's what I usually tell people. Look, I don't know what's going on. I have no clue. It's weird out there, and we could be wrong. And here's the thing. Conspiracy theorists could be wrong, but also people who have been spoon-fed propaganda through the media and entertainment are definitely wrong about the nature of reality. That's all I know. All I know is definitely fake news is redundant. It's definitely all a biased opinion. It's definitely skewed, and it's there to make you think a certain way. So the topic that I want to talk to you about is about being wrong. And it's okay to be wrong. And I think so many people don't want to admit that sometimes they're wrong about something, because they feel they have gathered all of the facts, and I'm going to put the word facts with some big old quotes around it, because you never know what the facts are. There used to be a time where people, in their medieval ignorance, that you will say, oh, these were ignorant people, they would look at a piece of rotting meat, and they would see that all these maggots would come out of it, and flies would be born of the maggots, and they would say, well, that's where this comes from. It's the rotting meat. It just comes from the rotting meat. That's where these flies come from. They didn't understand the whole process. The process is that the flies land on the meat, lay eggs, and then the eggs, which they couldn't see with their naked eyes, would then grow into the maggots, and so on and so forth. So they would be mesmerized by the process. They wouldn't understand the whole thing. So that's why we have things like science to help us understand things. The only problem is the people who control our lens of reality know that we can easily be fooled through perception. So they will tell us that something that they have supposedly discovered is scientific. One of the most frustrating things for me with this is called fuzzy math. When a physicist cannot explain how something works, and I think Hawking in particular was guilty of this, when it's like, oh, we don't really understand what happens at a certain point in a black hole, and we're just going to call this fuzzy math because we just don't know, but we don't want to look stupid because we're supposed to be geniuses. I'm like, well, just say you don't know then. Stop pretending like you know. I'm always fascinated with people that know how to use math. I'm terrible at math. I'm good at understanding theories and concepts to a degree. I'm always learning something. But I've seen so much spooky stuff that's so voodoo, so superstitious, so religious and spiritual that I can't explain it. And that's only because I'm ignorant of the process that goes on. And you could use words like cognitive bias. You can say, oh, your mind's filtering things to connect dots that aren't really there. Sure, I agree. The reason I see numbers all the time, like 111 and 222, I'm sure that's my brain picks up. I find some type of connection to that, and I'm like, ooh, that must mean something. But my brain is just seeking out those numbers because I've almost subconsciously just programmed over the years to do that, right? So there's nothing spiritual going on. Surely there's nothing spiritual going on. But when you start recognizing weird coincidences, and when you start having experiences and conversations with people, and people show up in your life at just the right time, it becomes spooky. And maybe I don't understand the whole process. Maybe I don't scientifically understand where it comes from. But what I am convinced of over time is that I don't know. And that's okay. It's okay that there's a little mystery. It's okay to be wrong. Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to be wrong. Everyone wants to think they have such a clear view of the world. And over the years, I realized I really don't know anything. And the more that I abandon preconceived notions of how things work out. Like, that's a huge thing with the law of attraction. All right, you've got to determine what you want, but you can't focus too much on how you're going to get there. You know, you have to let the universe bring things together for you. Now, I don't know, you listening, how you feel about that. Either that statement sounds like garbage to you, or you understand. And you've seen it. You've seen the universe work in your favor. You've seen God move heaven and earth to somehow make things work for you. I know I've had that experience before. I know I've been wrong in my life. Wrong about people, wrong about ideas, wrong about cultures. I've been afraid of things. I stepped away years ago from culture in general. I became very reclusive. I never watched the news, which I still really don't. And I really stopped paying attention to the changing world. And I'm starting to wake up in a brand new world where it's like a culture shock. I feel like a time traveler. Everything's on the phone now. That was amazing to me. I'm like, everybody does everything on the phone now. They order a pizza on the phone. They get a taxi. Like, I remember trying to get a taxi, and there's no. It's like it's a ride share now vehicle or something like that. Like, I know that my ways of doing things are so antiquated. So, what was the year that I kind of went? It was a couple times that this happened to me, but I know 2014 was one of the big ones where I just checked out. I just decided to ignore culture. I just stopped paying attention, and I didn't start paying attention again till early 2020. I was walking out of a grocery store, and there was a woman who was yelling into her cell phone at someone. She goes, "This is the third place I've been, and they're all out of toilet paper. I don't know what to do." So I called my mother. And I said, hey, some woman was just screaming about not being able to find toilet paper at 3 different places. What the hell's going on? She goes, "Oh, it's all over the news. There's some type of thing out there that they say that people can get and everything." And that was the first I had heard about that in 2020. And I'm like, really? And that's how I found out about it. That's how cut off from the world that I was. What was it? The 2016 election. I didn't find out who won the 2016 election for like 3 or 4 days later. I saw something trending on Twitter. I was just checking I had put some of my cartoons and t-shirt designs up on Twitter. I was seeing like how the posts were doing, and I saw some hashtag about who lost the election and I'm like, I'll be damned. You know, that's how I found out who the president was. Days later. The election had been days. Like, I didn't care. I didn't care who the president was. I didn't care what the news was trying to scare me with. And it was so weird. Cat, what are you doing? My cat, she's chasing her tail, and it makes me a little nervous because she's doing it on an elevated platform next to a bunch of stuff I would prefer not end up on the ground, Cat. Okay, that's fine. She doesn't normally do that. She's not a dog. She's a cat. But cat, I guess she's bored. Alright. Make a note to myself. Purchase some type of cat toys. Because my cat's obviously losing her mind on this. She just keeps staring at me. She has no idea why I'm talking to myself. When I do these little speeches. She should be used to it by now. So how did I occupy my time during this reclusiveness where I cut myself off from the entire world? I read books. I was big into the law of attraction. I was big into how our minds work. So I started reading Think and Grow Rich. I read The Secret of the Ages. I listened to a lot of audiobooks. But I didn't really pay attention to the culture. So I didn't notice the culture changing. I didn't notice... It wasn't until I started working at a grocery store and I started talking to young people, they started telling me, make vertical videos. And I go, what? I said, but I hate vertical videos. I said, that's the stuff that people just watch on their phone, right? And they're like, yeah, no, you got to make vertical videos and you got to make them really short. I made a video that was 45 seconds long my 19-year-old friend said to me, is like, that's like way too long. Like, your video should be like 15 seconds. And I go, you kids today, that's awful. But I was wrong. And the second I started making much shorter videos with quick little jokes, and I started doing the vertical content, people enjoyed them. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of fun to do. And it's a lot easier than making like a 10-minute video, especially the editing, which was the hugest nightmare. I was wrong. And I'd gotten advice from someone. So I realized after I'd come out of this cocoon of trying to work on my own mind, I got really into meditation. I was meditating. That's when I had achieved some type of weird feeling of enlightenment, without drugs. And then later on, having taken things like psilocybin, I realized, like, oh, well, this is like what you accomplish with a lot of meditation, only it's like cheating. But I'm at that point where I'm like, I don't feel like, I feel like cheating at this point. Occasionally, within moderation. Everything in balance, everything in moderation. So even as I come out of my cocoon and I try to reemerge into the culture, I know to do it carefully. Don't absorb too much of this culture because it's kind of stupid. I know, I look around me and I go, wow, the young people really have a lot of tattoos and they're getting them on their face. That's probably not a good idea. And they're getting a lot of symbols. I don't think they understand the meaning of those symbols. And I know about symbols, that symbols change. I remember the symbol of, I think it's called the symbol of the four winds. It's a Buddhist sort of symbol that was co-opted by the Nazis, and it became the swastika. And I'm like, well, that symbol changed over time. Imagine it's the late 1930s, and you're really into Buddhism, but the culture is like it is right now, and you're like, oh, I really want to get this cool tattoo of this symbol, this good looks symbol, and then all of a sudden the Nazis roll out with their big red flags with the white circles and this thing, and it's like, oh man, that's what I got on me. It means what to them? Oh no. So symbols change. They change for culturally, but they also change for an individual. You get the person you're in love with's name tattooed on you, and you guys break up. All of a sudden that changes, A lot of people tell me they get their kids' names. One girl I was talking to said she's got her mom's birthday, tattooed on her and stuff like that, and her brother and sister's names and stuff like that. I get that. It's interesting. I'm 42 years old. I have no tattoos. As someone who practices Hermetic Kabbalah, I understand the power of symbols. And I would never attach a symbol to myself. And as I'm saying this, I think I talked about this in another speech that I gave, there was a gentleman that comes into my grocery store that had the word hard times tattooed on him, and he looked like he had been through some hard times. And I'm like, such an awful affirmation to just have on you, to just have that tattooed on you as an idea. And a lot of people, I think, have a very negative perspective on things. They feel like their suffering should be present on their body as like, I want to remember the pain. Maybe that's a positive thing. Maybe it's a negative thing. Maybe I'm wrong. But for me personally, no tattoos. I don't want a symbol on me. I don't want to absorb that symbol as an idea into my subconscious mind. I won't pick a penny up off the ground if it's heads down. And I was explaining this to a coworker of mine. He said, do you really think it's going to give you bad luck? And I said, I do. I said, the power is not in the penny. The penny itself has no power. I said, it's my mind that makes it real. I said, I grew up in a superstitious family. I was always taught that was a bad luck penny. If I pick that up, there will be a feeling in my solar plexus, in that chakra, that will just make things real. Our three lower chakras, and I know I'm losing a lot of people when I started talking about chakras, really are the three lower chakras are what kind of are the way we interact with the material world. And I won't go too into it because I probably will bore a lot of people with it. But I would get that feeling in my solar plexus. It's that butterfly in that stomach. It's that feeling you get when something's not right, and it makes things very real for you. So I cannot pick a penny up that's heads down. My subconscious mind makes it real. Being wrong hurts our egos. We don't want to be wrong. But we have to accept that we're going to be wrong sometimes because our perceptions are flawed. You've heard the expression, perception is reality. Right? Well, it really is. And facts are tough to determine when you don't know how deep the rabbit hole really goes. You don't know how far you can continue to take a thing. You don't know how solid something actually is until you put it underneath a microscope. You use a powerful enough microscope, you realize it's not solid at all. What's the truth? Is the object solid? Or is it really these particles that are moving around and popping in and out of existence, and it's mostly empty space? What's the truth? It's a truth that you hold in that particular moment. For me, with a body in the material world, I perceive something as solid. My perception is the reality. Okay, I am not that microscope that perceives the particles bouncing around. But I can understand that as a concept, and I can work with that energy. I can work with concepts like meditation and affirmations. That's what I was doing when I was in my cocoon, when I was reclusive, and I was working for a t-shirt company, designing t-shirts, and that's what I did for a living. I worked from home, and that sounds great. That sounds like, oh, that sounds cool. No, it was horrible. And I'm so much happier now being a part-time cartoonist and working at the grocery store even more because of the interesting conversations I have with people, the interesting observations I make being around people. The only two places I ever went when I was reclusive was to the grocery store and to the thrift store, where I would buy books and DVDs and all records and that. That was it. That's all I did for years. And I'm so glad, because people are shocked when they hear that because of how personable I am. It's like, well, you're really good with people. And I go, yeah, I was like that before. I said I used to do stand-up comedy before I went into my cocoon. I was an actor. I was in theater. When I went to an art college where I participated in film programs, and I was in people's independent films and stuff like that. Like, I was an outgoing person. I chose to cut myself off from the world because I was tired of things. Maybe afraid, maybe scared. I don't know. I had had a bad experience with an ex-girlfriend. The relationship went horrible. I mean, went nuclear. She was living with me too. So it just like my entire life, I'm just like, oh, I need to cleanse all this negativity from my life. I need to go into this cocoon and re-emerge a better person. But I was wrong. The cocoon, maybe I wasn't wrong. Maybe the cocoon was part of the process, because I know in particular there's something about women who are really into esoteric things, love the metaphor of the butterfly. Oh, there's so many butterfly tattoos and t-shirts. Just let it go. Become the butterfly that you know you... Nobody likes caterpillars. I love caterpillars. What's wrong with being a caterpillar? What's wrong with being this lowly, this loathsome sort of crawling thing on the ground? Why do you have to be a butterfly? Why? Can't you just be in the process? And I feel like, so I don't like the metaphor of the cocoon, but I certainly like where I am now, that I came out of my cocoon and I'm now a butterfly and I've spread my wings and I work in a grocery store. Some woman actually said to me today, with an attitude, may I add, she goes, "You went to college, but now you work in a grocery store?" I'm like, yeah, it was a 2-year art college. It was BS. It was a waste of money. I said, I have an Associates of Science degree in video production. What do you want me to do with that? but I'm so much happier here. I said, I didn't even do anything with it. Not really. I worked for a television commercial company briefly. Like I worked a little bit in the industry, but not really. Not really. And I hated it. It sucked. The attitudes and the egos, like, of what's perceived to be like a cool job. Oh, it's such a cool job. I work for this company and we do this. And oh, I met some celebrity last week. It's like, yeah, the people in those jobs were fake. I didn't like those people. I like working in a grocery store. I like working with who I perceive to be real people. They have real problems. They all have mortgages. You know what I mean? They're all horribly flawed. They're like me. They feel real. I love it. I love working in a grocery store. I really do. She said that with an attitude. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I still do my art. I still find time, and I love that I found this medium where I can speak to people about this. I'll tell you what, if my mother was still alive, she would hate that I was working in a grocery store. She would hate it. And that's the thing. Like I feel like that I'm freer now. I make this decision on my own. There's no one to judge me. I have no family anymore that can judge me. My cat doesn't care that I work at a grocery store. She wishes I would buy more cheese for her. I keep forgetting. I forget. But that's it. I love working at a grocery store. I love the people that I work with. And years ago, when I was in my cool artist cocoon, working from home, I was wrong. I was wrong. Death before day job is what I used to say. Oh, death before day job. I'm an artist. I never called myself an artist, though. I was never that pretentious. I knew what I was. I was a cartoonist. I was a crappy artist who could manage to put things on a t-shirt, on a greeting card. I managed. I knew how to use Photoshop. You know? That was the only class I remember when I went to school. The teacher said to me, he's like, have you ever used Photoshop before? And I go, no, I haven't. Because I had done something, I'd create some type of shadow effect. Like I did a photo of an El Camino that I had taken pictures of on the water. It looked like it was floating on the water, and I had made a copy of the image, and I flipped it, and I changed the transparency so it looked like it had a reflection in the water. She goes, that car has a reflection in the water. And I said, yeah, and I told her how I did it. She goes, have you ever used Photoshop before? And I go, no. And I said, I just kind of figured it out. She goes, huh. I knew. I was excited. I'm like, I like this. I like the manipulation of images, and that's how I'm like, I could tell jokes through cartoons. I could make art and then, design t-shirts and that, and I thought it was fun. So yeah, but my whole point about being wrong is that I never would have envisioned the life that I have right now, and that I would enjoy it. That I would enjoy working at a grocery store. And I actually also enjoy being single. I really think I'm wrong that I need to find a girlfriend. But I'd like to find that out on my own. I used to be a carefree bachelor. Now I'm an incel. Now that I've actually tried to find a girlfriend over the last, I think 6 months ago, I got a bug up my ass. Like, yeah, I really should try that again. I know it went horribly before. I went out on some dates. Over the last couple of years, I've been on some dates. Some of them were pretty horrible. Some of them, the women are just, I don't know. In general, they seem to be happy being single. I seem to be happy being single. I have a slew of images on the internet that I can look at. All of the women that I want to look at there. HD video of them, and I have personal lubrication and fake orifices. I'm set. I'm all right. As far as the more amative, loving sort of aspects, I just watch a chick flick. That's what you could do. I just watch a chick flick and like, oh, that's so sweet. Look at them together. And then I can have that. I can embrace that feminine side of me. There's the masculine, the progenitive. I just want to hump something, and then there's the more loving, amative type of thing. Why the hell not? I feel like I'm covered that way. You know? Am I really 30 minutes into this? I just looked at my recorder. I should start wrapping this up. I think I've talked about my own personal little habits there long enough. This is Jar Humor. I want to thank you so much for listening. I don't know if I made much sense or if I made a very good point. In the future, and this has been a suggestion made by one of my listeners, I'm actually shocked that I have listeners only a week or so into doing these little speeches, that I should probably organize my mind a little bit more and do notes. I will do that next time. This one I just kind of wanted to go with it. I wanted to go with the topic of, it's okay to be wrong. I think that's how we experiment with things. I think that's how we find out our own personal truths. That really sounded corny. I really hate what I just said. I really don't like that just came out of my mouth. This is Jar Humor speaking. Thanks again for listening. That's going to be it. This is Jar Humor signing off.